I became acquainted with Nathan and Rob multiple years ago when they actually came with my wife and I to multiple car shows, but specifically, they did a wonderful video on our 1941 Packard and our 1934 Packard 12. And you may see those in some of the earlier videos, one from 19, I believe it was, and the other one from like 21. But that's where we really enjoyed the type of interviews and stories that we've been able to convey to Rob and Nathan about our cars and the enthusiasm we have. And just so you have for a reference, we started in this back when my wife decided that she wanted another car for a birthday present and it had to be vintage. And that led to our 1941 Packard. And after that, it was just downhill. But today, we're going to be talking to Jim. Jim and I have known each other for multiple years now. He has a slight fetish for neat cars. We both actually started with Corvettes, and I actually dated my wife with a C3 Corvette back in 1973 and 74. With that, I think it's a good opportunity. Jim, tell everyone about why you really like Corvettes and that you've had a couple to speak of over the years.
Well, I've enjoyed the sports car scenario of a Corvette. And unfortunately for me, I've had about 40 Corvettes over the years. Had one just about every year can make, and I drove one as for a company car for many, many years. But I just enjoy the horsepower and the acceleration I get out of driving a Corvette with a big motor in it. So I've done that for a long, long time, and here I am, 78 years old, and still driving a horsepower Corvette, you know, something that's really, really big and fast. So I'm not real smart to get in a nice Cadillac smooth, go down the road at 50 miles an hour. I'm just not there yet. But be that as it may, we've got a couple of really nice Corvettes here that we're going to look at today. We couldn't get them all in the movie here, or whatever it happens to be, but we are looking at these two right here. One of them is a 2001 C8 Corvette, and it's kind of a silver with a red interior. And then we have a 2010 Corvette that is a ZR1. It's a what they call a C6 now, which is a car, and a ZR1 is one of the most over-engineered Corvettes ever made. It's got about 600-800 horsepower, and it will go relatively fast if you want it to go that fast, and which I do. But they're a fun car to drive, and just handling real nice and smooth. It's a 6-speed transmission, which makes it a lot easier to drive than a regular car, I guess. So that's one of my favorite toys. I've got an older Corvette is my favorite toy, but I just won't get out of the C2s, the 1967 cars. There's something that just makes me smile when I get into them. I smile on these cars, but I smile better in the older car.
Now, Jim, the ZR1 is supercharged, correct?
It is supercharged.
And what size motor's in there?
It's a...
the model?
It's called a LS9. Okay. It's one of the biggest engines Chevrolet makes. It comes up with about 300 horsepower, and or a little bit more than 300 horsepower, like 600 horsepower.
Yes.
I mixed up, but it does quite well.
So, Jim, what about your first Corvette? What year did you start loving Corvettes, and how did you actually get your first Corvette?
Well, my first Corvette happened to be in 1962, and my sister had one, and I had to have one, so I ended up buying I had several old 1955 cars, but I traded them all in and got me a 62 Corvette, which is the most fun car. And once I got that car, then I was in love with the Corvette in general, and so about every year or so I bought me another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And when I got out of Vietnam in 1967, I bought my sister a 1966 Corvette, and I bought myself a 1965 Corvette when I got out of Vietnam, and we both drove them shortly thereafter. And it was something that I really enjoyed, being able to buy her a Corvette. Enjoyed it.
Well, that was very thought. Now, is it younger sister or older sister?
Older sister. She was about 3 years older than I was.
And were they both big blocks?
Yes, they were. I'm a fanatic on horsepower, so they both were big block cars.
Of course, and you only kept them in first gear, so they didn't really go that fast, right?
Well, you had to get out another gear once in a while because you felt like the car was going to stall on you if you wouldn't go into the fourth gear or whatever it happened to be. But I enjoyed them a lot. Enjoyed them in many different circumstances. I like to take them as a road car and drive all over the country with them, or take them from here to the grocery store, whatever it happens to be. I just enjoy riding in them.
Were they convertibles or coupes?
A little of both. The ones I bought in 1966, 67 were convertibles. And we put the top down on days like today, and it's just fun driving.
We're with you on that. My wife and I, she enjoyed the C3. We had a T-top Stingray because it was a 1973 5300. The embarrassing part was once I taught her how to drive a 4-speed, every once I turn around, we'd be at a light, and she'd be there egging on a Triumph TR4 or TR6. And so there was no competition. So you had a couple to start with. So ultimately, how many did you really, if you will, acquire over the years?
I'm going to say the number's up to 40 right now. I can back into my head count to 39, but I know there's another one in there somewhere, but it is 40 Corvettes that I've had.
So you pretty well have identified that the good old 67, 427, 435, that's the one that really has, shall we say, captured your attention.
That's my favorite one. I've had 67 small block cars. I've had 66 small block cars, 66 cars that were supposed to be 4 1/4 horse, where the 67 was 435, but that was all for insurance reasons. The 67 ended up with a 500 plus horsepower car, and the 66 was just about the same, basically the same motor. The 66 only had 1 4-barrel, and the 67 had 3 2-barrels, which added extra more fuel to it.
But you didn't really jump into any fuel injected at that point?
Not really. I bought some fuel injected cars over the years, and I call myself a home trained mechanic, and I couldn't work on the fuel injection units like I could a carburetor. So I always got something I could work on and fix myself, because I didn't have to depend on anybody else working on it.
We totally understand that. My wife has just recently acquired for us a 58 Pontiac Bonneville fuel injected, and the only person we could find to work on it is 87 years old. So we adopted his expertise and went from there. So you've done a lot of tripping with the Corvettes over time. How does your wife feel about them?
She enjoys as much as I do. In fact, when she was a small girl, she wanted her mother to buy her a Corvette, and that we're talking about Ken and Barbie Corvettes, you know, that kind of. And she finally got her mother to get her one, or help her get one, which is a 74 model Corvette. And she just thought that was where it hung the moon. She just loved that car and loved to drive it everywhere she'd go. In fact, she had a Cadillac before that, and she traded her Cadillac so she could drive the Corvette. She was sales representative for a company, and she liked to drive the Corvette around showing her products or whatever it was, and she just enjoyed the car.
So based on the Corvette experience you've had and the number you've had, have you actually started with one that required significant restoration and done that? What level of, shall we say, wrench turning have you experienced over these years?
Well, from just about every kind you can imagine. I've taken them off the frame, and sandblasted the frame and powder coated the frame, and went all up from there and put every new gauge or whatever you can go in the car. So I've done every level of restoration you can get as far as the car. As far as the motors, I probably have done a lot more motors than I did cars. So I'd take the motor out of the car and I'd rebuild it and fix it up the way I wanted to do and put it back together, and I'd ready to go. So I'm an old drag racing nut. And when you're drag racing a lot, you break a lot.
Of course.
And then when you're poor, you have to fix it yourself. You couldn't hire somebody to come do it, you know. So you learned how to take that broken part out and put a new one in and fix it.
Well, when you start with frame off, ultimately, I mean, I'm sure that your wife, Karen, would love to have seen a pretty car. So were you one of those guys under the circumstance that resorted to Rust-Oleum paint job, or did you actually go and get professional paint on those cars?
Professional paint.
Oh, you broke down and did
The only Rust-Oleum I did was like under the hood.
Oh, yeah.
Inner fender wells and maybe the part of the frame or this, that, and other thing, just working up to a correct paint job.
Right.
And a correct paint job even 10 years ago was $25,000.
Yes.
To get a Corvette painted, and that's just a 2-door car.
Right.
So it's like if you're painting your big Packard, you better break out another dollar bill or two.
There's a little bit, well, in our age and in our vintage, we remember, you know, I'm from kind of up north, but Earl Scheib used to be the 99-95 Earl Scheib paint job. 2 days and you're good to go. But of course, in 2 weeks, it started peeling off. That was a bit of a problem. So,
Well, I had an Earl size paint job on an older car I had at one time, and I saved and mowed yards and did everything I could to get up to $40 it cost to paint a car. And I really was proud of that paint job. It's just that I didn't prep it very good, and the Bondo fell out and this and that. But the paint looked pretty good, you know. But anyway, back in the '60s, you could have a car painted for, you know, under $100, and you got a good paint job if you spend $100 on it. Nowadays, you're starting off at 25,000 and go up.
exactly.
You know, and to get one done correctly. And there's a correct way and a not correct way. A correct way would be taking the doors and trunk lids and all that stuff all apart, taking the car apart from everything that unbolts off the car, versus where they just tape off the chrome and windshield and paint it.
That's exactly right. Well, considering you really worked on more engines than you have, if you will, the bodywork, framework, if you look back at the 67 as a reference point compared to what's sitting behind us here for the much newer, you know, C6 and C8 generation, how would you compare? What would you say the biggest challenges you've had comparing to biggest challenge with the 67 compared to these mechanically?
Well, there's really no challenge to it. I mean, you take an old stupid man like me, I could do the 67 car, every nut and bolt screw in it. I can just start these cars. I'm lost with it. This car here behind us over here has the engine in the middle. This one has the engine in the front, but they're so complicated. You look down in these motor compartments, you can't even see a fan belt, an alternator, an air conditioner.
That's right.
They're so compacted and you can't find them. And so you have to be a good mechanic from Chevrolet dealership, where you take the engine out from the bottom of the car and put it on the stand, and then you can put the alternator belts on it.
Yes, yes. It
And
seems
so,
like you have to take more of the car apart before you can get the part that you actually need to address.
and when you pay a mechanic several dollars per hour,
Right.
$100 to do that, it costs you a good bit of money to do something like simple, like I wanted a new alternator for my car. It's not charging good. Well, that'd be a few $100s,
Oh, yes.
you know, to get that done. Versus you change the oil in it, and they're not that bad. But both these cars are what they call a dual sump motor. There's 2 oil plugs on the
Yes,
bottom.
yes.
You have to change oil on each one of them and put it back together. And it's you have to show, if you take it to an oil change place, you have to show them how to take it out.
Yes, yes.
So they'll just do one oil plug and think it's finished.
And they're
And
done.
we got another one right over here. You take it out.
Well, knowing that you like the high performance cars, and we know that you've been on the track, what would you say the fastest been that you've driven one of your Corvettes? Legally, of course.
Well, I don't understand the world legally too much because I haven't been there very much, but I would say over 200 miles an hour. I had
Really?
a car, or at least over 200 miles an hour.
Do you have one of those shirts say, I've been over 200 miles?
No, I don't. I was going to go to Salt Flats and get me one of those, but I did this at a racetrack with some friends of mine. It was actually the Talladega racetrack.
Uh-huh.
But it's like a thrill that you ever had before. As you're going in Talladega, there's a ramp that goes up over the second turn, and you cannot see anything but the sky. You can't see the road. As you're going up there, you just know you're going to drive off into Neverland, you know. And when you're doing that fast, and you have somebody like my bride with me, you can't hear the car for her, the yells and screams going on. You're going over the top of this hill, you know. And so it's fun, it's fascinating, but it's not for everybody. It's just not.
Let's segue then to talking about the 2 cars behind us.
Okay. So, Jim, based on the 2 cars behind us, what can you tell us, comparing the 2 cars, what do you like about the C6 versus the C8? Why did you buy those 2 cars, and what do you find most interesting and satisfying about those cars?
Well, the C8 with the newer model car over here, I bought it as what we call a road car. A car that I can take on vacation, take to the halfway across the United States, all the way through the United States, and get 25 to 30 miles to the gallon out of it and enjoy driving it. It's just a fun car to drive. So it's not all hopped up and fixed up where it's very difficult to keep it tuned. It's just a regular good car.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take it almost any Chevrolet dealer throughout the country and do something simple like oil change or whatever. You can get anything done. And so it's a car that my wife and I like to drive and have fun with, but it's an economical car. You know, 25, 30 miles to the gallon or more, you can drive it all day long at 65 or 75 miles an hour, and you're happy, you're content, you're going. Now this other car, this called the ZR1 Corvette, it's the one that comes with a 600 horsepower motor. It is the fastest Corvette Chevrolet's ever made in its time frame. It's a standard transmission. It's a 6-speed transmission with a horsepower of whatever, like I say, 600 horsepower. Gas mileage is not its friend, but it still does 20 miles to the gallon if you keep it moderately driving. But it is a car that is worth a lot more money if you don't put a lot of miles on it.
Right.
Put a lot of miles on it, you just drop the value down every year. The newer cars, there's everybody gets a brand new Corvette, like to the several thousand of them made a day or whatever it is. And so the value of those cars with miles on them really is not that much difference. I mean, you just lose money when you're driving one through down the road.
Right.
The ZR cars, they maintain your value. This car is still over $100,000, being several years old, 10 years old.
Oh, yes.
Whereas the new Corvette that cost, you know, just under $100,000 brand new is only bringing probably 60 or 70 cars right now, or 50. You know, it just doesn't bring that big money. So this is a car you want to keep for a long, long time because it's going to hold its value.
Right, right.
You know.
Do you, are both motors basically small block motors?
They are.
Like 5 liters?
Yeah, they're mostly small block engines that are heavily tuned and fixed up with Chevrolet's engineer department with aluminum heads and special fuel injection units, etc. You know, they're on them.
But the C8 is also a part of its carbon fiber, right?
It is.
Yeah, that lightens it up a lot, but it also adds to the cost.
Well, both cars pretty much have identical carbon fiber, like the hood and the top and various parts of the car. And the graphics, like on this one, has all carbon fiber stuff on it. So it makes it much lighter than a regular Corvette of that particular year model, which doesn't have all that stuff on it. So you pay for the carbon fiber price when you pay for it. It gets a little bit more expensive. It's lighter and it's stronger, but it's just more expensive.
So how many miles have you got on the ZR1?
It's about 15,000.
Oh, well, that's quite low under the circumstances, because that's a 2010?
Yes.
Yeah, 2010.
It's actually under 15,000. I can't remember exactly what the miles are, but I'd take this one to, I don't know, San Francisco and back in a minute.
Right.
Because I'm at my age, kind of like you are, sir, but at my age, I may not have another 25 years I can drive the car.
That's right.
Why save for somebody else? It's all mine. So I'm going to get it and go and enjoy it and have my S&S grin on my face for many moons, because I might go to, like West Texas, for instance. Speed limit's 70, 80 miles an hour, West Texas. You can go out there and do 150 miles an hour and nobody seems to bother you.
Right.
You can take the same road going to the same place, which is California. And you go to California, you do about 90, 100, something like that. And these highway patrolmen pop up out of the ground like popcorn. They pop in there behind your butt before you know it, and they'll write you a ticket in a minute. And that's what this guy says. I don't need car registration in Mississippi. He says, yes, you do. I was a Gulfport highway patrolman. I said, okay, here it is. But I was going quite fast, well over 100 miles an hour, and the California highway patrolman told me I couldn't do that all the time. It wasn't good.
Yeah, they're not very flexible on that. But they, like you say, we're getting up in the years. But that's why we married our very young wives, so we can sit and they can drive us around, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, there's no question about that. No question about that. You know, it's like the roads out in West Texas and Nevada and California are as flat as a dadgum pancake. It's as flat as they could possibly be. And when I went to California, I couldn't see a sagebrush, a bush, tall grass, as far as I could see in all 4 corners.
Well, that's
why I was doing 100-some miles an hour, and it's
right.
fine. And how this highway patrolman just popped up out of the ground, I don't know how he came from. There wasn't any billboard out there for him to hide from or nothing. But they do. He said he saw me way back, and he tried to catch me.
Oh my goodness!
Then we'll wrap it up. So, what's a favorite memory?
Right.
What did you? I'm sorry. You know, I told you earlier. I'm just paying attention.
Of course.
Did you ask a favorite? Did you ask what got him into cars earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That was at the beginning.
I'm focused on everything else. I thought
we started at the C1 and moved
up. That was
up.
the beginning. But so then, to kind of wrap it up with favorite memory,
Right.
and What are you going to do with them going forward?
Right.
Continue to drive them? And a question I had when you said that a minute ago, 18,000 miles, my retort to that would have been, how many of those miles were over 100 miles an hour?
I
Well,
plead the fifth.
Yeah,
That's
there you
right.
go. Well, do that. Let's add that. Let's add that in. Say, okay, well, come back and mention that. You said 18,000 miles. How many of those? And then you say that again. I plead the fifth. So, and
Okay.
then do favorite memory, and then we'll wrap it up.
So I think at this point, since I think it was 15,000 miles on that ZR1, I know Karen drives it too. So how many miles do you believe were under 100 miles an hour out of that 15,000? Or maybe it's easier to say, how many miles did you drive it over 100 miles an hour? Or did Karen drive it over 100 miles an hour?
To protect us both, we plead the fifth. I don't want some law enforcement person, which I know a lot of them, would come to me and say, Jim, now we got you on tape that you went that fast. So I'm going to say I plead the fifth, but both cars are capable of that. And both of us have driven cars relatively fast and enjoy them. And that's the whole secret of a Corvette versus driving a Cavalier or a Porsche or something. You got a good feeling when you're going fast.
Well, I can tell you one thing, Jim, you will not look good in one of those striped jumpsuits. So it's good that you've contained yourself on the road. What do you think at this point has been the best memory for you with your Corvettes?
Well, I've had so many and been so fortunate to have these nice newer cars, but best memories in my old C2 cars, the 63 to the 67, and the 67 has been one of my favorite cars. Where if I had to take any one of the cars that I own right now and take it to New York or California or South Florida or wherever, I would prefer driving that car. And that car does not have power steering, power brakes, or air conditioning. But it's a fun car to drive, and I enjoy it so much compared to a car with air conditioning, power steering, power brakes, all the amenities with cruise control, everything you want to do on a road trip. But I feel good driving an older model car. Just feel good driving it.
I think that's an experience we all would like to have. Well, Jim, we can't thank you enough for your time, sharing your experience and expertise with these wonderful Corvettes you've had. Anyone that's owned 40 has deep experience with that, and we wish you and Karen the best and the driving experiences you're going to continue to have with the newer Corvettes, and certainly re-enjoying the 67. So we look forward to seeing you again on Two Guys and a Ride, and thanks for being with us today in beautiful Brandon, Mississippi.